And of course, it's great to have our two special guests for the evening. First of all is the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, Labor representative for Mill Park, and of course the Minister for Climate Action, the Minister for Energy and Resources, and the Minister for the State Electricity Commission. An interesting fact is that Minister D'Ambrosio is actually Australia's longest serving Energy Minister. Yeah. Been in the role since 2014, I believe, and in that time she's overseen a range of significant regulatory changes and updates, including the Climate Change Act, Victoria's emissions reductions targets, and of course the reintroduction of the State Electricity Commission. So we're really grateful that you've fitted us into your busy agenda, Minister. And she'll be joined tonight by the fantastic Jono La Nauze. La Nauze, I apologise. Jono is the CEO of Environment Victoria, and that's the latest in a long line of distinguished leadership roles in environmental advocacy. He's also worked with the Climate Action Network Australia, the Australian Conservation Foundation, and Friends of the Earth. And of course, he's been a long-time friend and supporter of Lighter Footprints. We're very pleased you've joined us again. We're privileged to have these two experts with us today to talk about a topic that I know is front of mind for a lot of us, which is, of course, energy and energy futures here in Victoria. We're going to particularly focus tonight on the question of gas versus electrification in our energy mix looking forward, and what our various policy options look like. So we'll hear from the Minister first up. And then we're actually going to hear briefly from David Strang, who leads our Energy Transition Working Group. As you all will know, Lighter Footprints is a non-partisan organisation, and we aim to help everybody understand the full spectrum of policy options that are available to them. So to that end, we did invite Opposition Leader Jess Wilson, whose electorate of Kew we're meeting in this evening, to attend, but unfortunately she was unavailable. So in her absence, and in the interest of fairness, David will present a comparative summary of the Liberal policy platform. Once David's spoken to us, the Minister will be joined in conversation by Mr La Nauze before we move to the audience Q&A. So you can ask any questions that you have by scanning the QR code on your printed agenda. That will take you to the website where you should see not the button that says sign up for Menti, but click the button that says open Q&A, and then you'll be able to ask your own questions, and you'll also be able to click the thumbs up to indicate questions that you'd be interested to see answered. Okay, so I think that's all the housekeeping for this evening. So without further ado, I'll ask the Minister to come up.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and to Jenny and Lynn of Lighter Footprints, and all of those volunteers who make up that wonderful organisation. Before I go much further in acknowledgements, I do want to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting here tonight. And my respects, of course, go to all of their elders of the past, the present and the future. I do want to also reflect on the fact that Victorian government is, and in Victoria, we are the first jurisdiction in the country to establish treaty with First Nations people. This is about fairness. It's about reflecting on the past, but understanding that for all of us to be able to progress in the way of healing our environment, managing our transition through renewables and reducing our emissions, and the prosperity that we all aspire to in our daily lives and into the future, however that is defined, it is important that we are all there along that journey, and that we are all looked after, and that people are enabled to be able to do things for and on behalf of themselves and their communities. And thank you to certainly Lighter Footprints for this opportunity. I do want to also acknowledge Jono La Nauze, the CEO of Environment Victoria. Jono and I have known each other for many, many years, and it's been a while now, and I'm pleased that we've been able to reconnect tonight, Jono. But I know that you, your organisation and our government has very, very strong connections and conversations about ways forward. And David Strang, thank you very much for you being able to provide the alternative views in terms of policies, gas policies. It's always important for us to deal with facts. That is how we progress our understanding of what is before us and also identify what the solutions are. I know that there are several local councillors here, and very pleased to be in your presence too. Certainly, Lighter Footprints have been at the forefront of community climate advocacy for many, many years, and I want to acknowledge the dedication of time, the expertise your members contribute. And when I was first invited to this event, it was a forum with Jess Wilson and myself to discuss Victoria's energy policy and compare Labor and Liberal Party policies. And I'm sorry to hear that Jess Wilson wasn't able to attend tonight here in her own electorate. I am still delighted to attend. I think it's always important to show up, turn up, no matter what the environment is, because we need to have conversations. Sometimes we will agree, other times we may not agree, but unless we have those conversations, we, I think, fail the broader community in terms of what governments ought to be doing and should be doing, and the licence to take the actions that we believe need to be taken, especially in the area of climate action. It is important that in public life politicians aren't afraid to speak to voters and to answer tough questions. And this year, of course, Victorians will face a choice. The November election will present very different visions of Victoria to voters. And here in Kew, of course, you'll have several candidates asking for your vote, and I imagine the same will happen to me in the electorate of Mill Park. Our focus today is on energy and in particular gas policy through a climate lens, which is also critically important. I know a lot of people in this room do care very much about climate action, and this year Victorians have a really big climate choice. And I'm proud to say that under the Allan Labor government, Victoria leads the nation in climate action. We have said, and some of this information you'll be very familiar with, but I think it's always important to reflect on where we've come from and where we are and where we aim to get to, because ambition is really important, but so is taking communities with us. And I'm proud, and certainly we've set a nation-leading climate targets. Our 2035 target of 75 to 80% reduction in emissions is stronger than the national target set just last year. Our target of net zero by 2045 is one of the earliest legislated net zero targets in the world. And we're not just talking about climate action, we're doing it. And this is really important. It's not easy. We know that. You all know that. But that is not a reason not to take action. But it is a reason for us to think carefully, still with ambition, to get it right. And that is really important that we do get it right. We've here in Victoria decarbonised much faster than the rest of the country since 2014. We smashed our 2020 target of 20%, achieving a reduction of over 30% emissions. We met our 2025 emissions reduction target of between 28 and 33% 2 years early. We've supercharged the renewable energy transition. We've increased renewable energy from around 10% when we first came to government at the end of 2014 to over 44% last year. 44%. Well above the target we set for last year. We've brought back the SEC with an initial $1 billion investment in renewable energy and storage to accelerate the projects that otherwise would not have happened. We ended native forest logging 6 years ahead of schedule, expanding Victoria's carbon sink. We're the first state in the country to set offshore wind energy targets, and we'll build Australia's first offshore wind farm here in Victoria, with the auction opening in August this year. Now, Jess Wilson's not here, but I can tell you the opposition do not share our commitment to climate action. Before the 2022 election, Jess Wilson told voters that she supported net zero. But certainly in her first week in the job as leader, she repeatedly refused to support net zero when asked on radio. Her shadow minister, Beth MacArthur, had voted to scrap net zero at the Liberal State Conference just weeks before. The same one who told Parliament in November 2024 that climate has always been subject to natural variations. It's April, and already Jess Wilson's Liberals have said they'll scrap the SEC, raise new barriers to renewable energy by scrapping our renewable approvals processes, and effectively ban wind farms by reintroducing the 2-kilometre buffer zone from the Baillieu government over a decade ago. And we remember what happened then. Not one new renewable energy project received planning approval in those 4 years. Not one. All of the investment, the only ones that got built were the ones that had been approved by the previous Labor government. All the investment dollars went to other states. Okay? This year, Victorians will face a big choice on climate. The focus of today's event is energy and gas policy, so let's get on and talk about that. We know Victorians' number one priority is cost of living. We know, and it's become more so with every passing week, with every passing month, and we only have to look at a lot of the change in global conditions that put control of people's lives even further away than what it should be. A lot of households are doing it tough right now, very tough. And in the energy portfolio, my focus is on helping households with the cost of living. When we talk about gas, we need to think about households, we need to think about families. It is a fact, fossil gas is getting more expensive for households. For decades, Victoria relied on plentiful, cheap fossil gas from the Bass Strait. We all know this, those of us who grew up in Victoria, including myself. That's no longer the case, and we need to adapt. If we don't adapt, we are going to be facing increasing cost pressures from fuels, from gas. In recent years, the gas export industry has linked the price we pay for gas here in Australia to the higher prices paid overseas. That's a reality that we are in. That means Australian and Victorian gas prices are highly exposed to international events. In 2022, the Russian invasion of Ukraine sent global gas prices soaring. The conflict in the Middle East right now raises the threat of further pressure on oil and gas prices. Our focus has to be on cheaper energy bills for households. Part of doing that is to become self-sufficient to the degree that we can. So if gas supply is dwindling and gas prices are going up, that means we need to encourage the move beyond gas. In 2022, I released the Gas Substitution Roadmap. It was the first of its kind in Australia, and I don't think anything has come near it since we released it back in 2022. It's a comprehensive, staged and realistic plan for transitioning from gas to electric energy while maintaining security of supply. We know that renewable energy is cheaper and more plentiful than fossil gas. We know that switching to efficient electric energy saves households money. The gas substitution had a range of steps to do just that, but it starts with a choice. If households' cost of living is the priority, we need to be honest with Victorians with a plan to transition off gas to cheaper electric energy, especially in the home. So Jess Wilson isn't here, but her side do not share this commitment to cheaper electric energy for households. In fact, they've consistently opposed the Gas Substitution Roadmap and the measures within it, and have in fact declared that they will rip up those reforms if they are elected. They do this without a plan to protect households from higher fossil gas prices into the future. And all that means is that more Victorians will be locked into higher energy bills for decades. So when Jess Wilson spoke at the Lighter Footprints Q Candidates Forum in 2022, she said, I quote, "Gas in a net zero economy will cease to be a part of the mix." Since she's become leader, she's been saying different things. The Liberals aren't known for cost of living support. They're known for cuts. When we were first elected, we saw retail power prices during their term in government rise by 34.1%, and disconnections doubled. Disconnections from an essential service doubled. So let's review what specific steps, Victoria, that we have taken to help households move from gas to efficient electric energy. As of January 2024, all new homes that require a planning permit in Victoria must be built all electric. It's already prevented thousands of Victorians from being locked into higher energy bills for years to come. As of January 2024, gas networks can no longer offer financial incentives or rebates for gas appliances or gas connections. Why? Because those incentives were locking households into decades of higher costs. Nearly $900 million in projected long-term costs that this helps them avoid. And we've announced nation-leading minimum energy efficiency standards for renters to come in from the 1st of March 2027. These are big. These are really big. For renters, from the 1st of March 2027, hot water systems and space heaters that break down and cannot be repaired are required to be swapped out for heat pumps, hot water systems, and efficient electric reverse cycle air conditioning in the main living area. Now, not only will that be a relief in terms of the energy bill for those renters, it actually improves the value of the property for the landlords. That's an important point here. As people look for new properties to rent, they know that the cost of moving in and the cost of renting needs to be considered alongside of the cost of actually living in the home when it comes to their energy bills, and that's really important. We've also said, and have now in regulations from the 1st of March 2027, that ceiling insulation needs to be implemented, needs to be installed at the start of a new lease for those properties, rental properties that don't have at the moment any insulation. That provides extra support for renters. And by July 2030, efficient electric cooling must be implemented or installed in living areas regardless of the lease status. That's a backstop date, okay? Really important. Now, all of this will save renters up to $1,000 on their energy bills every year, while ensuring their homes are more comfortable to live in. And every upgrade a landlord would need to make under the new standards can be supported with a VEU discount. So we want to make it easier for landlords to be able to swap out those appliances with energy efficient electric appliances that are discounted in terms of the upfront cost. We've announced nation-leading measures to require all new residential and most new commercial buildings to be all electric from the 1st of January 2027. So you can see we are already embedding in regulations energy saving and bill saving measures that will go such a long way to be able to reduce the cost of living, to reduce people's energy bills, to improve the value, the comfort and the value of a home and properties. And this is there for the long term. And of course, this is about reducing our reliance on gas as we decarbonise our economy. Now, we've announced new requirements for existing gas water heating appliances for existing residential buildings. So that's the homes that we probably all live in. The requirement there from the 1st of March next year is that in your existing home, if your hot water system breaks down and it can't be replaced, it would need to be replaced with a cheaper to run electric system or a heat pump system. Now, efficient electric hot water systems cut energy bills by up to $400 a year off your energy bills, or $590 if you've got solar on your roof. Importantly, these rules, all of these, include sensible exemptions for circumstances where electrification is not practical. And it's important that we understand that. Now, I've got 5 more minutes and I've got quite a few more pages, but I'll rip into it. I'll keep going. Now, I think what is really important here is that there is going to be a clear choice at the end of the year. We want Victorians to have the choice of cheaper, efficient electric energy supported by government policy, supported by government programs that absolutely deliver cost relief for them, bill relief for them. And that's something that we are absolutely living. Our values as a government is to put people, communities at the centre of what we do. cost of living, supporting households with cost of living pressures is really very much in our DNA. You only have to look at the consumer protections that I've introduced in the energy space that have kept more people connected to their electricity and gas than they otherwise would have. When we came into government, we faced disconnections that were through the roof. People now have got a much better chance to be able to stay connected to their energy supply and given a pathway to be able to manage debt and be able to stay afloat. Our Victorian Energy Upgrades program is nation leading and we're expanding it. It's a program that the Liberal parties hate. They've always voted against it. They hate it and it will go. It will be scrapped. And the real question is, when these programs are scrapped and these regulations are scrapped, what is the alternative proposal for cost of living? What is the alternative proposals to help people decarbonise their home and to electrify their home? So we need energy to be affordable and reliable. Victoria will continue to need fossil gas for years to come, and we need to ensure that it's there when it's needed. The transition is happening. It will need to be gradual. It will need to... We know that certain industrial gas users cannot switch to electric energy in the short term. So we need to have a very strong plan that concertedly reduces our reliance on fossil gas through electrification, having that upfront benefit of bill relief, but ensuring that we've got enough supply for parts of our economy that cannot substitute in the coming years, and at some point there should be some solutions for that also. So I will leave it at my comments at that, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to make some remarks at the beginning of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel ill-prepared after that comprehensive talk, but I was asked to explore the opposition climate and energy policy. I think the immediate difficulty was that the opposition does not have a comprehensive climate and energy policy, and climate is not one of their stated policy priorities. So what information do we have? Most of what we have comes from media releases from David Davis. Jess retained David Davis in his position when she did a cabinet reshuffle on becoming leader with a slight change in title. The shadow minister and the opposition leader have criticised Labour policies without putting forward alternatives. The opposition opposes key elements of the Victorian government's gas substitution roadmap, particularly the shift to all electric buildings, and campaign frames household gas as a matter of freedom and personal choice. It's reported that the opposition, if elected, would reduce tax concessions for renewable projects. Not a large amount, but still just another barrier. And the opposition, if elected, would mandate audits of new energy developments. All in favour of audits of work to be done, but allowing farmers to challenge renewable projects of VCAT could lead to total congestion. And I think the last bit we could find on Liberal policy was we couldn't find anything on native forests, but it's unclear whether the Victorian Liberals would reverse the ban on native forest logging if elected. They opposed the ban on native forest logging. They opposed the creation of 3 new national parks. And it's important because native forests are very significant carbon sinks. So That then got to the second part of what I was asked to do, which was to give our views of the Liberal climate and energy policies. Our view is that climate change is a massive challenge for the world to manage, and Victoria must greatly reduce the use of gas if it is to meet its targets. The Liberal Party has no clear climate change policy. If they want to represent the people, they must have clear policies to manage emissions. These policies must be based on facts. Firmed renewables are the cheapest form of electricity generation. We must reduce our use of gas, and this means electrifying homes and industry where possible. Emissions associated with gas appliances are higher than those associated with electric appliances. Electric appliances are much more efficient. And the gas distribution network will become largely redundant over time. Jess Wilson, I'll leave you a minute to read that, but based on her extensive policy experience, Jess Wilson understands what needs to be done. She should support electrification and aggressive emission reduction targets. Why aren't these views forming part of the Liberal Party's policy? And the final bit is looking at what happens, what it would mean to reverse the mandated shift to all electric homes and buildings. The original Victorian Gas Substitution Roadmap and the annual updates represent a measured approach to reducing our gas usage. It now requires new homes and most new commercial buildings to be built all electric from the 1st of January 2027. The campaign No Gas Ban frames household gas primarily as a matter of personal choice. David Davis uses the argument that because Victoria primarily uses brown coal to generate electricity, gas appliances are cleaner than electric appliances in Victoria. This statement rests on several errors and half-truths. Gas is a toxic greenhouse gas and should never be referred to as clean. Victoria's grid is cleaning up rapidly and is now over 42% renewable and becoming cleaner every year. So with electricity, the emissions reduce every year. With gas, they remain the same. Electricity appliances are vastly more efficient than gas appliances. Heat pump technology is the saviour here, and electricity is much safer than a flammable gas in the house. So exercising the freedom of choice will result in long-term emissions, will lock customers into higher costs, rising distribution costs and volatile gas prices, and will maintain poor health outcomes for customers, which is noted on the slide. There are times when public benefit should override personal choice, and this is one of them. Reversing the mandate would mean that we would have no plan to reduce emissions from burning toxic gas.
Thanks so much, David. If we could have the lights up again, I'd now like to welcome Jono and the Minister up to the front for the In Conversation portion of the evening. Don't forget to pop your audience questions through the Menti app. If we could have the lights up again. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you, Rob.
Fantastic.
It's a trick too. Okay.
It's not too high, which is good. A bit short. Excellent. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to kick off firstly paying my respects to the elders of the Kulin Nation whose land we're on, and also to any First Nations people present. I pay my respects and glad to see the recognition tonight, and also want to express my excitement that we are a state that has finally entered, a period with treaty, and look forward to that evolving as we go forward. Indeed. When I was asked whether I would come along tonight, I have to say I was a little hesitant, because I knew that between you, Minister, and the Lighter Footprints audience, I would be the least informed person in the room. But I comforted myself with the thought, well, at least I'm guaranteed to learn something. But in all seriousness, I echo your comments at the start about democracy being, it's about showing up. And I think the context we're in right now of a global energy crisis, I think of, in many senses, that's not just an energy crisis, it's a democracy crisis, as we wake up every morning to go, what are these handful of despots around the world have got for us next, and what's that going to do to our lives, let alone the lives of the people right on the front line of that horrible war. But it also made me thought, well, you're an energy minister in the middle of that crisis, and yet you're turning up here to speak with people who also turn up to make this democracy work. So I reckon you, all of us, deserve a bloody big round of applause for turning up and making it work. I was here when the local member, then the local candidate, uttered some of those words you quoted before, and I certainly hope that one day she does turn up again to an event like this and we can ask questions of her. But for now, I'm going to ask you some questions, Minister. And speaking of such an informed audience, I know people are very well versed in the issues of gas, and I know that people are quite interested to know what comes next, and they're thinking particularly, my first question is about the gas networks, and as we have to face the imminent retirement of those networks, managing that challenge. Now, very recently, the Australian Energy Market Commission, started to look at this question in response to advocacy from really fantastic consumer groups, and looked at the problem of what is going to happen as a declining number of people are left on the transmission network, and the cost of transitioning that network inevitably, if we do nothing else, will be borne by those probably who are least equipped to bear the cost of that. And the direction that the Commission was looking at included allowing the companies that have profited from those networks over the last 30 years to, I suppose, front load the cost of transition by accelerating depreciation and enabling them to recoup the cost of future transition from the largest customer base before that customer base declines. To me, and to a lot of those consumer groups, and I'm sure a lot of people in the room, that sounds like reneging on the deal that Alan Stockdale promised 30 years ago when he privatised those networks, saying that consumers wouldn't bear the risk, the financial risk of managing these networks. These companies that would benefit from being able to profit from running these networks and being able to get a return from us, the consumers, would bear that financial risk. But that doesn't sound like the way we're heading. And so the thing, though, that we do agree with the Commission on is that ultimately this is a problem that democratically elected governments have to solve. And I'm coming to the question, but we all know, and you've pointed out, that Victoria, and particularly, I'd say, the Victorian government with you as Energy Minister, has led the way on reform after reform after reform. Renewable energy targets, offshore wind targets, emission reduction targets, storage targets, gas substitution roadmap, and unfortunately right now the rest of the country is waiting to go, what are you going to do next to solve this wicked problem of how do we retire the gas networks in a way that doesn't leave people behind? So, Minister.
Well, you really came up with a doozy, didn't you, for the first one, Jono? Look, I think it's important for us to understand that I think it was the Australian Energy Market Commission that was doing this work. This is a long-term piece of work. So, and I think it's really important that we're really not faced with this challenge now for quite some time to come. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. The reality is that the plan that we've got in place will deliver cheaper bills for Victorians, and that's really important. And it's also about people becoming accustomed to electrification in a way that is understood by them in terms of cost pressures, bill pressures, but also about the technologies that some of which have been around for a long time, but perhaps not had widespread adoption and now are absolutely hitting the ground running. I think the impact on networks has to be managed really carefully. This is really important. I know some people are jumping to the view that somehow we're going to have this major problem that's going to be imminent, and it's not imminent. It's really important that we understand that. Our objective is to reduce the reliance on gas, saving people money, freeing it up for those industries that need it and can't electrify, because we've got a massive demand balance, demand and supply that we need to balance. And we know that each year there's talk about, and the relevant market experts produce their reports to say, when we're going to have a bit of a gas crunch along the southern states, and that keeps being pushed out year after year. And I think that's important because if we can deal with the demand side, that actually helps with the supply side. And that's where our focus is, I think, Jono. I think that's where Victorians want us to have the focus. And right now, we've got a choice of either going with an approach with a very strong set of policies and support programs that actually do help people be able to make the switch and start saving money every day, or the alternative, which is to rip all of that up and just have people locked into higher gas bills in their home for decades to come. That's the stark reality of it. So I know that the Commission is doing this work, but I think it is important for us to understand that that is a challenge for many years away, and it's not one that is imminent today.
It's not imminent, but it is one that, would you agree, is something that it is the appropriate domain of democratically elected governments to be thinking about that. If we leave it to the market, that's, I suppose, the fear that people have.
I can understand that, absolutely. And when we were first elected at the end of 2014, what I saw was that there was rules and markets that were basically had been delegated to unelected bodies at a national level. It's not a Commonwealth criticism, but at a national bodies that none of us had really any control over. And so we saw insufficient planning around the electricity transmission infrastructure that we needed, knowing that there was this train coming at us with renewables being built, very quick to be built, but transmission was lagging. So we took control over that in terms of the planning in Victoria, because we saw that things were getting stuck through the national approach. And democracy told me this wasn't good for us in terms of our transition, and that getting more renewables in was not going to happen unless they were confident, those developers were confident that they could actually have transmission that they could connect in and send that electricity out. So absolutely, yes, I agree. Look, I think what's also important is that we've developed up licence conditions around requiring more data to be collected from the gas distribution level by postcode area, so we can actually understand what gas consumption is looking like as a trend, so that we can do the appropriate planning. Because the fact is, we need to plan, and to do planning well, we need to make sure that we've got the right information before us and have those conversations with communities.
I'll leave this topic, but with one last observation. We have seen what a disorderly transition looks like in gas networks, or some communities have, with Solstice Energy. We actually asked our supporter base, we have people who live in the communities affected by this, how that's impacting them and what they needed. And it was pretty clear they felt they needed information, they needed time to plan, time to save. And so what you're talking to about actually making that data available so that consumers can be empowered, to actually plan for the inevitable, whether it's 10 years away, 30 years away, or 2 years away, that they can actually be playing. Well, for solstice, it's less. For solstice customers, it's less than 2 years.
Well, yeah, and on that point, Jono, this is what happens when you have governments and Solstice gas network that was delivered, managed by Solstice, was what was delivered by the previous Baillieu government between 2010 and 2014. It never stacked up economically. Putting aside any people concerns around gas and climate, it never stacked up economically, and it showed. It was a failed policy, and it ended up being a failed rollout. One now that communities, are being faced with in terms of working out, whether they go back to bottled gas, to some electrify. These are the options that people have, and it's governments need to think carefully about the decisions they make. And this is a real failed policy from the previous government.
It's a really good point that governments need to think carefully, because these things have very long tails. And speaking of which, you mentioned transmission, and I know everyone in this room is aware we need to electrify as fast as possible, but that's only helpful if we also plan for the closure of coal, which your government has been doing. We now are a couple of years off Yallourn closing, and I think most of us are a little nervous but reasonably comfortable about that situation, but a lot of us are getting pretty nervous about the next one. And so I guess my question to you is, if we don't pick up the pace of the renewable build-out, and we are faced with, for example, the gap being filled by more gas-fired generation, and that leaves a very big cost. We have a big problem on our hands, but the intervention points are now, even though it's such a slow. So what do we need to do, and what can the people in this room help?
Thank you. And look, I think it's really important to reflect on the fact that the things that we have done and the measure of the success or otherwise, right? So we've set the targets, we've set legislated targets, and we've actually then looked at the programs and the policies to help deliver on those targets, and we've done that. So we met our renewable energy target for 2020. We well and truly overshot that. We smashed the 2025 one, 40%. We ended up with 44% renewables. And our policy, our target for 2030 was upped from 50% to 65%. We are absolutely on track to deliver that, and we will. Now, transmission is a really important element of that. We all know that. And what we have done in recent times is make some changes around regulations, around laws, to help for these projects to be done. And the reality is we cannot not do transmission. We need that replacement electricity, and no matter what people think of a coal generator or any other generator, it has an end of life. It's a physical piece of kit, and it does reach an end of life. And we know that Energy Australia and their coal generator at Yallourn will go in 2028, and no matter what some of the detracting media wish to put out there, it will close, and we will have more than sufficient electricity to meet our needs for then. I want everyone to be assured of that. People like to act like there's problems around it, or people make up speculation. There is no speculation. Energy Australia are very clear in their planning. We are very clear too, and all of the evidence shows that we will have sufficient electricity. The disturbance or the nervousness is deliberately created to cause people to think twice about the journey we're on, to also punch confidence in the renewable, punch the wind out of the confidence of the renewable energy investors. That's what it's designed to do. So we're very clear. Now, we are never lackadaisical about these things. We are always checking. I'm always looking for those updates about how we're tracking with the renewable energy projects. There's been a string of improvements, reforms to the planning system to ensure that we can, in a very sensible way, be able to have projects come online sooner. And transmission, of course, is another one of those that will get built. It needs to get built, And of course we do have a sensitivity amongst communities, which is important for us to always have. You will see that we've made some legislative changes to be able to have compulsory access arrangements in place that are enforceable, which match basically what happens in other states and which match long existing laws in non-transmission major infrastructure projects in this state. So we've done all the things for us to be able to be confident that we will have the build out of renewables to ensure that an exiting coal plant can exit and we will have that security of supply there. Absolutely.
I look forward to 2028 and 2035, but I think we do have hard work to do, all of us, between now and then, to maintain that confidence, maintain that pressure. Yep. Helpful pressure, I hope, on people such as yourself to actually do the hard things and push through those projects where they need to happen.
Yeah. And sorry, John, I think it's really important for us to reflect on the fact that small-scale renewables is a really important part of this, and it's not the only part, but it's small, but it's significant. So recent figures tell us that 11% of all of the electricity that we generate in Victoria is from rooftop solar. 11%. That is significant. You
preempted my next question. So solar homes is a huge program that you brought in. If you guys win the next election, that program, regardless of who wins the next election, that program, as I understand it, will run out sort of mid-term next term. It is such a big program. It plays such an important role. Where to next for that?
Well, look, it is a massive program, and it was a 10-year program that I remember myself and Premier Daniel Andrews kicking off. I think it was in 2018 sometime, and it's been very, very successful. Look, you know, we are here about continuing to grow rooftop solar. Okay. However we do that, you'll have to wait and see. We've got an election coming up, but our commitment will remain, and it won't be abated, frankly, because we need more Victorians to be able to have the opportunity to access rooftop solar, as they should with battery technology, and it's really great that the Commonwealth Government have put in a really massive program to help Victorians go to that, all Australians go to that next step of not just creating their own electricity, but being able to store it. And we've got to build on that, and we've got to build on our record, and we've got to build on our solar homes program, however that looks.
I look forward to that. I wasn't expecting a policy announcement tonight, but feel free. I'm sure everyone would love it. Speaking of benefiting from solar, I live in a 10-storey apartment building, and there are plenty of people, an increasing number of people that live in apartment buildings. It is not as easy to benefit from solar, nor necessarily electrification. And I think one of the things I've learnt as an apartment, well, I've been in an apartment just for 10 years, is that it is actually an entirely different type of dwelling, and none of the regulations and policies and laws really are designed around it. The Australian norm, you know, the Australian dream, it's a detached dwelling, it's the quarter-acre block. I think that is, I mean, we are changing, we are becoming more of us are living in apartments. It's great. I love living in an apartment. But we need to actually, you know, the reforms that you've brought in over the last decade, I think apartments become, you know, the next chapter in a big way. How do we make sure that apartment dwellers benefit from the transition?
And that's an absolutely important point. We know that nearly a third of people, homes are renters, and a lot of renters live in apartments, and that's an important thing too. So when we're thinking about apartment living, it's about those that physically may have challenges with adopting these technologies, and others that can't do it even if they could, because they actually don't own the property. So, but really virtual power plants are going to be a really important part of the future and the solution for those that live in apartments. The virtual power plants that are centred around, you know, a core of solar panels that can be off-site, connected up with some neighbourhood battery or battery technology of some sort, and the benefits can be shared across those that live in an apartment. We've actually supported, Solar Victoria, through our grants programs, have supported a number of similar apartment dwelling proposals through our Solar for Apartments program that has been successful. We need more of that, of course. There are challenges, absolutely. There's challenges in terms of an incorporated association needing to have unanimous decision-making, I think it is these days still, something near to that.
Far too close to that.
Yes, that's right. So those are the things that I think potentially barriers that need to be addressed in some way, and at some point to ensure that we can continue that rollout and have much higher uptake. But the program has been successful thus far, and of course building new apartments will be under the new regulations, which is an
Victorian energy upgrades, does it have a role to play?
Always has a role to play. I'm very very ambitious for the Victorian Energy Upgrades program. For those of you who remember, it used to be called the old VEET program, and didn't have a lot of love. People didn't quite understand it for a number of years, but it was doing a lot of things like, changing out light bulbs. We're way beyond light bulbs now.
And in apartments, but in apartments, light bulbs is one of the areas that it has had success, is my understanding. Common area lighting. But can we go there with, say, gas boilers? Can we go there?
Yeah, absolutely, you can. Absolutely. So what we've done now is effectively the VU program no longer can be used to support new gas appliances in the home. Okay, when it first started, our electricity grid was really still very, very coal intensive. So gas actually was more carbon friendly, if you like. Less carbon intensive. It's not the case anymore. So the VU now for households is basically electric only, and gas boilers is an area of specifications and methodologies that I'm really keen to see put into the VU program. And really, any appliance now that you can think of in a home is on the VU program that can receive a discount for a replacement.
I think there's work to do to enable owners' corporations, enable/nudge/force them to make better use of that. But I'm neglecting the audience questions and I need to jump to them. So the most popular question, it probably won't surprise you, but I'll give you a little preface. We've been talking about the inevitability of the decline in gas demand. In fact, it's already occurring. I think we're using 20% less gas today than we were a decade ago, and that's before a lot of your reforms kick in. And the Australian Energy Market Operator keeps predicting shortfalls that then don't happen as demand is lower than they expect. And yet we are approving, or your government is approving, exploration, new import terminals, allowing them fast-track development through the fast-track development program. The question is why, but I'm going to add a bit to it. I mean, I kind of know why. How does that change? Like, we all know that 2045 net zero is only 19 years away. That's the bat of an eyelid, blink of an eyelid, in terms of the investment timeframes for gas infrastructure. It's nonsense to be investing in this stuff. What's it going to take to be in a room like this where any minister is confident to say, no, don't need it, not going to approve it, in fact, we're never going to approve another one?
Well, I think any energy minister needs to act with a degree of responsibility to ensure that we don't run out of gas how can I put it? Sorry, I should put it in a different way. The demand for gas, it is decreasing, and that's important. But we're in a situation where the supply of it we're going to have a cliff, frankly. So if you don't actually meet that cliff, you're going to run out of gas, and no one wants to run out of gas. Certainly not in the next few years, and that's really important. So a responsible government isn't going to say we're going to turn the tap off. What we do, a responsible government, is do it in a way that is practical, does have a degree of ambition and is achievable. and doesn't destroy the economy. Frankly, the rate of decrease of reliance on gas cannot fill that gap, if you like, that we're seeing in the next few years, unless you have more supply coming in to balance it out. That's the reality. The other thing that I really want to be clear about is the environment and the climate cares about one thing, and that is the trend downwards. Okay? I know that some people will be unhappy that there's new exploration licences or new production licences, but what I say to you is the evidence of our emissions reduction targets actually working. And it's the trend away from the intensive fossil fuels, if you like, and energy sources that really is what the measure is, and that's what the environment cares about. At the same time, any democracy wants to know that the government knows what on earth it's doing and has just got a control over this. We need to make sure that demand and supply is balanced. If not, we're going to have all manner of problems, and no one wants to live in a house with no gas heating if that's what they've got. And that's really important. And destroying the economy and industry is something that we would never entertain. And I say that without any hesitation. We need to manage this well.
I'm going to push you a little more.
Responsibly.
I think everyone agrees that we need to manage it well, and we don't want people experiencing price shocks. We don't want people experiencing actually having to choose between putting food on the table or turning the heater on. But as I said, every time that there is a shortfall predicted, it turns out it's still another year away. It's still another year away. It's still another year away, because they continually overestimate demand. And when you say the environment cares about the line on the graph, is it trending down? The environment also cares about seismic blasting. So I put it back to you. It's not a gotcha question. What does the world have to look like for it to be possible for you to stand in front of a room like this and say, actually, I'm not going to approve another one?
Well, look, those forecasts of let's call it what it is. The Australian Energy Market Operator produces what they call GSU, the gas supply statement of opportunities. I'm sorry about that. I know this back to front.
All the O's. There's so many O's.
Right. It's a gas statement of opportunities, and that simply means this is what our forecast of known gas that's coming in, or electricity for that matter. They do this annually for each energy source, and basically that is really a description or a notice to the market that, look, we don't know what's going to happen in 3 years' time, and that they then expect people to go either invest in new renewable electricity or gas projects, what have you. We can't just rely on that year by year to know what's going on, and because there are times where a year is not enough to make the necessary changes or positioning for a government to ensure that you're going to have the supply that you need, and that's really important for people to, I think, understand and accept. I do genuinely say to you that people do want us to manage this well. People don't want to have price shocks. People shouldn't have to have price shocks. But we are absolutely on a strong trajectory. The reforms that we've made in regulations here in Victoria in terms of household gas use and the swap out of appliances and new build properties will show that by 2035 we will have reduced our gas to a degree of being able to almost match what the industrial load is in Victoria. That's a significant amount. So that's gas there that we're not actually having to go out and find from somewhere else. Gas. That's really important.
Yeah. In case anyone thinks
we can disagree on some things too, Jono.
That's all right. In case anyone thinks I'm checking Facebook, I'm actually looking at Menti and I'm looking at your questions. And so if you haven't, well, I think, how long have we got, Sarah?
We're running a little short of time.
Maybe one more question? Another question or two. Is that all right?
Yeah.
There have been a few questions actually about commercial and industrial gas use, and I think, rightly been focused on households first for a whole lot of reasons, including that in Victoria that's actually where most of the gas is burnt.
Right.
But there's a huge amount of gas burnt in commercial and industrial settings, and as you pointed out, they need longer lead times. So what can we do to accelerate that transition? And I'd point to New Zealand, who have done a huge amount of work and have had a huge uptake of heat pumps in commercial and industrial settings. What can we do in that space?
And it's a great question. And can I just say to you, we are doing a lot in Victoria. We've really... Look, I mean, the reality is we're the ones who kicked off this conversation. We know that in terms of decarbonising our economy, the next thing that we need to really focus on is gas and our reliance on gas. So in terms of industry and manufacturing, what we've identified is that the food sector, for example, and the food sector in Victoria is probably about a quarter of the whole country is produced here in Victoria, so it's very significant. And then you've got food production, manufacturing, etc. Now, we know that with typically the heat that is required by those manufacturers can be accommodated by heat pump technology. There are some industries that have very high heat needs that right now the ability or the technology to be able to suit those circumstances doesn't necessarily lie in heat pumps now, but lie in other things such as renewable hydrogen or biomethane. That's over there. So we've actually got a program out there right now and a grant program out right now specifically targeting food and manufacturing sector for electrification. And I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to getting those applications in because that would make a really big difference and also demonstrate what is possible. Now, there are some businesses out there who've already gone and done that themselves. If you look at Mars, people will know Mars. Of course, they make confectionery, but they also make pet food, big pet food manufacturer in Wodonga, and they've got a couple other sites. They've gone really big on this and solar too. So we are doing a lot on that front. More needs to be done. We've also committed to doing a renewable gases guarantee, which is a scheme to help incentivise and to facilitate the creation of renewable gases as alternatives to the fossil gas. We'll have more to say about that soonish, but we've certainly had consultations out with industry over the last couple of years, and it shouldn't be too far away before we'll be able to have more to say on that. So we want to create a biomethane industry. We want to create, and that, because that's the cheaper of hydrogen, and at some point get to renewable hydrogen.
I know that there'll be interest in that, so looking forward to those announcements. There will be concern because we know that the pipeline companies have been using this promise of renewable gas as a reason to delay electrification. Any comments on that?
Yes, it is the renewable industrial gases guarantee. That's my answer to that.
Terrific.
It's about industry.
Yep, and it's about specific uses where it matches production.
It's not about households. Households is electrification.
Yep.
There's no argument.
Yep. No more MasterChef we're not going to have nuclear-powered barbecues next, are we?
Well, I think some people do want that, including some in the state opposition and One Nation, certainly.
I think we are probably at time. Is there anything you want to leave the room with before we wrap up?
Well, I think so. Thank you. And what I would say is that I've seen a lot of elections, state elections in particular, and will this one coming up be the same? But what I've tended to see happen is that opposition parties or conservative parties have tended to roll themselves up into a nice tight ball and not really say a lot other than throw out a few ideas and thoughts to not offend anyone and hope they fly behind, under the radar, only to come into government and bang. It's nice surprises, not very nice surprises at the end. I just really want to say to people, beware of, wolves in sheep's clothing. And that's always a message for me when it comes to state elections, because I say that all the time. I saw that in 2010 and I've seen it since then too. So, if David's presentation isn't enough of an indicator to tell you that it's going to be all over for the transition and climate reduction and renewables and lower power bills, lower energy bills. If that's not enough, I'm not sure what will be. So people need to really see this as a lot of stark choices that need to be made, and people need to see it for what it is.
How many days?
I'm not the type to count days. How many days? Probably about 9 months. I will say it in months.
We've got 9 months. 9 months to get an election policy and an energy policy out of the coalition.
Well, they've got one, but so that's about protecting farmers, they say, but it's just going to kill the industry. It's going to kill renewables. 6.5, there you go. My maths is not good, sorry.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for turning up, but thank you, particular Minister, for turning up.
Thank you very much to Lighter Footprints. Thank you.